In the last video, we set up a new file that we're going to be using for our model, and we also created the boundaries for the project. So we have our property line indicated here, and we have our setbacks here. Now I'm going to be using a fairly simple little house to demonstrate a lot of the processes that we're going to use in this project. And this was done with a hand drawing. And I'm going to go ahead and drag a PDF of that hand drawing into our drawing. And once this is in here, we can move it around. And the first thing we want to do is be good custodians of our file. Layer management is key in ArchiCAD, and having the discipline to keep everything updated is really going to be helpful for us. So we have a project sketches here, and that layer was off in this combination. So I'm going to put it on that layer, and I'm going to turn the sketches back on. And so here is our sketch, and we're going to be using this to create this new project. Now, I'm going to just make some decisions on where this sits. Let's just put this, this is an ADU. We're going to make this corner of the building on the property, on the setback lines right here. And given the circumstance of your actual project, the decision of that will be a lot easier. This is just an arbitrary decision. That's going to be corner of our setback. So what I do, and I encourage you to do the same, is, well, first we want to resize this. And if we select it, hit Control R, define graphically, I happen to know that this wants to be 30 feet. So I click the 2 points and I type in 30 explicitly. And then I'll just check to make sure that these dimensions, no, maybe that wasn't 30. Or that wasn't accurate. So I want to make sure that I've scaled my drawing appropriately. And it just depends on how carefully it was modeled. So some things to look at, you know, a 5-foot bathroom here is common. So I think this was just drawn schematically. So I'm going to use the 30 feet that I decided. And other things to look at are, you know, cabinets. So it's a little under 2 feet, but it's a loose drawing. And the drawing's not even straight, but that's not really that important. So you have two choices now, and I use both. I can either use the line work here in ArchiCAD to create some rough lines to work with, or what I do is sometimes I print it and I measure everything, assuming it was printed to scale. In this case, since we have the computer here, I'll take care of it here. And I just want to get some rough dimensions. I don't want to be, once I start laying in the walls, I don't want to have to think too much. So I can come in here and I can actually do some measuring, but obviously they're not very accurate. This is currently set into decimal, and I don't really want to use decimal. I'm going to go to my navigator here, and I'm going to hit first floor proposed. I'm going to lose some of my work here. Let's delete this before I do that. Okay, so that disappeared. But what I want to do is override my layer combination just while I'm working here. So I want my setbacks on, which are on under the plan site. So I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to turn my sketch back on. And then I have access to all the modeling of the house. I don't really need my sections on right now. So I will turn those off as well. And if I wanted to create a working layer combination, that can be helpful. And so now this is my working combination. And that as you go through the project, that working layer combination may want to get updated with time, it will generally be very close to one of the standards, and then maybe want to layer on or off. You can either do that manually, but then it keeps resetting itself, or you can go ahead and modify it, rename it as plan dash working, and then you have a constant combination to return to. So I'm gonna hit the Q key to go back, and actually I reconsider. I'm gonna call this model dash working, and that's going to be the working combination that I use throughout the project. Now I want to nominalize this building. I'm just going to use lines, and I'm just going to put them on the ArchiCAD layer and make them solid. These are just some temporary lines that I'm going to use to clean up some of this geometry. So there's a 30-foot line. I want a color that's going to show up a little more, so I'm going to use this red. And I want to nominalize these dimensions, and I want to kind of work a lot of these out prior to just doing line wall by wall, because if I have them set up, I can just go so much faster. So I'm going to use a 44-foot dimension. Now this is interesting because this was drawn so at a square. This was 30. This was about 3.5. So let's bring this line down. We'll normalize that to 12 for right now. And it just depends how critical these are. Some projects it's going to be really important, and some not as much. But if once you get the walls roughed out, then it's easy to make some modifications. Now this is a little closer. I'm going to do this at 3 feet. Come down. Oh, we'll do 15.8. Come over 4.5 feet. And we'll come down 6. And let's do 3.5 feet. And then I'm going to come over here. I'm using Shift, and then I'm going to close this. And I'm going to take all of these lines. So I'm going to use Shift to turn my cursor into a selection. I'm going to select all the lines, and I want these this red color. This gives me a visual here. You could have done this with a fill. I like lines. Fill, you have to keep going. Lines, I can draw some, move them around, intersect them. Gives me a lot of flexibility to work this through. And now I know that this hallway, well, I know this bathroom wants to be, let's pick up the properties of this line and put them into that line. Now that'll be our standard line. I know the bathroom wants to be exactly 5 feet, so I can rough those out, bring those over, and looks like this is about almost 10 feet. So I'll F9 for a copy, run that over to 10, intersect that, and trim that. Trim too much. Bring that over, trim that. And again, I'm just trying to get some basic dimensions in here so that got something to work with. So maybe this wants to be 9'3", and I want to get my walls all on the same side of the line if possible. We'll address that in a minute. And then let's nominalize what this is. So this here is not a nominal dimension. So I'm using the space bar again, and I'm going to move this. So currently that is 11'8". So let's just make that 11-9. That didn't work. So I'm gonna hit F5. I'm gonna go up here, move my mouse with Shift Alt. I'm going to come down. Was it 11.9? Okay. Again, trying to get something. Now I know these were nominalized. This should be nominalized. And let's just get a couple more dimensions in here. Depends on if we want these bedrooms to be the exact same dimension or not. I'm just going to move this at 5 feet. I'm going to kind of represent that wall. (6'9". And obviously you could do this with walls as well. It's a lot less burden just to run lines, and it's very fast to convert them to walls when we're done. And normalize that to 8.6. F9, copy this up, and looks like a 5.5 foot bathroom there. And we'll bring this over 2 feet. Bring this down. All right, so that probably gives me enough for now. I'm going to take these and I'm going to rotate this. And, well, actually we don't. That's going to be my corner. I'm going to move this closer into place. Then I'll move this, and we're going to do, I moved my origin. You notice I move my origin a lot. I really think that's an excellent way to work. I'm going to go -1 inch in the X, and I'm going to go -1 inch in the Y. And that's going to give me my space for my stucco. And I'm going to take these lines and I'm going to lock them just so I don't have to worry about them. And that shortcut, if you're using the Masterwork shortcut, is Shift left bracket. And we might as well lock this. I'll use the shortcut. So I can select it, but I can't move it inadvertently. And we're going to delete a lot of it in a few minutes anyhow. So now we're going to move to our walls. And here we want to make sure we select the proper wall type and we have the reference line correct. So here we're using an exterior 2x4, stucco, a 2x4, and gypsum. So this is your standard. If you want to go ahead and show the plywood, then you have stucco, plywood, 4x, and then your gypsum. And we'll go ahead and use that one. So I want to make sure. Now notice that because of so let's deal with that right now. Because we have the face of stud is where we're going to be dimensioning, I'm going to temporarily unlock these elements, Shift right bracket, and I'm going to F5, I'm going to move -0.5 inches and -0.5 inches. And that's going to give me enough room for the stucco. Oops, I moved my... And that's actually a good point. Right, great idea to lock these in particular, because the setbacks are not going to move, and we don't want to inadvertently make that mistake. And I'm going to select that, and I'm going to lock that as well. Go back to my wall. There's my wall. We're using the outside core. Very important. We want our reference line to be on the outside core for the exterior walls. And now we can just... Oh, we have a oversize issue. This house wasn't designed for this lot, so I'm not terribly surprised, but deal with that in a minute. So we laid out a lot of this geometry already, so this is very simple. And I'm just gonna, for the demonstration here, we're just going to stretch this up. So I'm selecting all 3 walls, and it looks like we need to go 2'3", get that within the setback, and we'll just make the room smaller. It's not gonna interrupt our learning. Okay, so now we have those walls. One thing we need to do is consider the heights of these walls, and we can go in and start by setting up our story settings. This is the elevation of the different stories in the building. It's we're going to start with 0, so this is top of slab. We put all of our finishes above the slab, so our finished floor is not the finished floor, it's actually the rough floor. So keep that in mind. And depending on what sort of joists we're using, we need to allow for the exact dimensions. Now we're using engineered I-joists most of the time, so this looks like it's set up for 11 7/8, 10'1" wall, 11 7/8 joist, 3/4 inch of plywood. So it's not the wall height. This is actually the floor to floor height. So this is assuming a 10'1" plate, 11 7/8 joist. This is a single story. So we can actually delete this, but I'm not going to. If it's a single story, we would get rid of this second story, obviously. And then this wall height here, it becomes the plate height, and the roof sits directly on the plate unless there's a roof deck. So some nuances there. Talk to the master builder on how you want to set that up, but I'm going to leave this the way it is now. It moved us to the roof. We hit the minus key a couple times. Plus and minus run us up and down a story. We're going to look at our walls. My current thought on walls, I'm going to hit the wall tool, Control A, is I'm not linking walls to stories, although you can. Actually, this one is. So this is a 14-inch joist and 3/4 inch plywood. So I'm going to make this, I need 11 7/8. So it's going to be 12.625 inches. And that's down. So these are linked. So if we increase the story, the walls will increase. And that's really the better way to do it. I'm not entirely opposed to fixing the wall length and not having, or fixing the walls and not having them linked. Probably something I should adopt. So we're going to go ahead and set this up that way. And we'll make sure that it's working correctly here in a second. So we can hit F3, double click the mouse wheel, and that's going to give us our 3D walls. And we can measure to make sure wall height's correct. It is not. And that's because when I do wall Control A, it should be a minus sign here. Other thing to note is at Masterworks, we use decimal inches. I encourage you to do the same. I know a lot of people are going to think I'm absolutely crazy to do so. Let me give my rationale. When everything's drawn exactly, the dimensions work nicely. If there's any round off error at any point, your dimensions start to act a little funny. When I see the precision of 3 decimals, it allows me to know that there was no errors made, that it's perfectly where it needs to be. And I like that because then I don't have to fight with it later. Now, a lot of people are going to do fractional inches, and I get it. But give it a try. Takes, we print out a little list of the 16ths, all the 16ths of an inch. And over time, you just know them. think it also keys in a little bit faster. So something to consider. Now let's check to see if our wall height's the same. And 10'1". Not sure what I was selecting there, but again, I could tell it wasn't right. It wasn't rounding. So it's doing some sort of rounding, but when I select the wall, I can see here it's an exactly a 10'1". That's the power of the decimal points. And now we need to be careful to switch our wall type to an interior. No plywoods, just an interior 2x4. Core outside. Now there is no inside and outside, they're interior walls. But we do want to make sure the wall's on the correct side. So here I can come in and put this bathroom. I know I want that to be exactly 5 feet, stud to stud. Some people like to do 5'125". I'm going to leave it at 5 feet. Now this is a shower, so obviously it doesn't have to be 5 feet. But if it were a tub, it's nice to normalize that. And I'm going to bring in a couple of other walls. Now we're going to use the backslash, and that flips the wall one side to the other. And I'm going to draw some of these walls a little long, and then I'm going to come back and clean them up in time. So here I do a lot of F9. So here I come over and let's make this a 3 feet, bring this up, select these two walls with shift, hit I. I'm going to start trimming, and I can drag this into here, drag this into here. I'm going to bring this down a little extra. Because I want to determine exactly what that distance wants to be, but I'm not ready to do that quite yet. And then we can F9. And again, I just sort of keep building this. I want to use the other side of the wall, so I'm going to just shift that, and then I'm going to F9 that again. 2 feet. Oh, again, we're on the wrong side of the wall, so we're going to come back. Okay, that looks good. Bring this through. So I just overdraw my lines. Need to flip the side. And then just clean everything up. And then so I can intersect those walls. Now I'm kind of done with my lines. So I'm going to take a marquee. I'm going to L, Control A. That selects all these lines. I'm going to unlock them. And then I'm going to hit delete. And those are gone. So I don't have to worry about those anymore. I've got the basic geometry that I want. And now I can just keep building off of that. Wants to come down. We're going to make this an interior dimension. I'm going to select here. F9. Bring this down to that edge. Move my origin, so now that's my 0. And then I'm going to do 5'6". I'm going to normalize that. Good enough. Trim this off. Run this through. F9. We'll go 2'3". Make sure it's a wide enough closet. Select those. I for intersect. Trim that with control. And here, we'll do an even 9 feet there. That gives us 2, 3, 4, but that's actually over the interior dimension is 4'7" and or 8'8" 8.5". So that'll give us a decent aisle here. Looks like close to what the intentions were. Interior wall here, bring this up, run it a little past. Then we can decide what this is. So I'm going to make this from this point 2'3". Here, I'm going to make this 26 inches from that corner. Notice lots of moving my origin. It's one of the really wonderful tools that ArchiCAD allows. I have a linen cabinet here. These need to get intersected. Bring this down. Make that a 2-foot cabinet. Need to make sure I have enough room. I'm hitting M for measure. 2'5", a little tight. And so this is where we start needing to design. I'm going to use the marquee F8 to slide all of this up, and I'm going to give myself 3 more inches to get these doors to work in here. So let me talk about the stretch. So you create a marquee. Any nodes that are in the marquee are going to shift. It allows you to move a whole group together, and then everything else sort of rubber bands around it. So you create the marquee to encapsulate all of the nodes that you want to move, hit F8, and try to click outside of the walls. Whenever I'm doing moves and offsets, I tend to click in areas that don't have any elements so I don't inadvertently select something. And so this gives us our walls. Now, a couple little nuances here. Under more, there's a wall cap, and this is a nice little detail to take care of. I'm going to set this up. I'm going to probably screw it up, but I'm going to show it in 3D. Cut line, use the contour, same pen in 3D. So this is 3/4 outside face. So this wants to be 0, 0. And what we want to do is just put a little bit of drywall right on the outside of the wall. Oh, this is easier to understand. This is under custom settings. And we select the blunt end of the wall, and it adds that nice little drywall, and that's going to make your models a little nicer and more accurate. And this wall needs to come back. We'll go 8'3", 8-3. And again, I don't have to put the apostrophe or the quotation marks. I can just do 8-3. And we'll put, I do this a lot. I capture the properties because that changes the tool. And I'll come down here and add that same little cap. Just a nice little finishing touch. And then we can look in 3D, and we've got all of our walls. Little caps. We need to tell it to make that. I have a hard time catching it there. I'll just click caps, Control A, and let's see where we control our surface. Here's our surface, and we want drywall. Go back into 3D. Gives us a nice edge. Notice our interior walls were not set to the right height. That isn't really a big deal. We can just hit wall, Control A, hit apostrophe, or double click this. And here we want to set that minus 12.625 inches. Now everything is 10'1". Great. Okay. So that gives us all of our walls. And in the next video, we'll throw in some doors and windows.